Have you ever found yourself in a situation like this, talking with a friend about Gunpla? So what do you think, man? See anything you like?
Thinking about this Char's Zaku.
Watching a YouTube video.
I built this MG Strike. Now I'm interested in building the MG Strike Rogue.
Well, in today's video, we're going to talk about the epidemic of mispronunciation and what to do about it. So I'm sure you've all heard some of the many examples, and like me, are probably guilty of some of them yourself. The Gundam Barbados, the Hayaku Shiki, the GM, the Strike Rogue, the Jigen, the OO Gundam, the XI Gundam, the Gaian, Char Aznable, even Playmo itself. Yes, a lot of words get mispronounced. But let's face it, guys, Bandai and the language discrepancy doesn't always make it easy or clear how to pronounce certain words in this hobby. And in case it wasn't absolutely clear that this is all a little tongue-in-cheek and I am actually getting to the point here in the video, it really doesn't matter at all at the end of the day how you pronounce certain words, and I'm gonna be the last person that's ever gonna correct any of you guys on your pronunciation of anything. You know, people pronounce things differently. I mispronounce stuff all the time, especially when it comes to like German words and things like that, just because I don't have any familiarity with that language. And so that's what we're gonna be talking about in today's video, is a little bit about the Japanese language. So let's just start with the fact that Japanese does actually translate fairly well and accurately into English, and the system for this is called Romaji. And what that is just where you spell out Japanese words with English alphabet. The problem is just that you have to be a little bit familiar with Japanese pronunciation, because the way that those words and letters are actually pronounced can be a little bit different from exactly how they're spelled out in English. Vowels in particular, for example, in Japanese only have one sound, whereas A in English can have many different sounds depending on the word that it's used in, depending on the spelling. A in a Japanese word is always going to have the same sound, ah. So we're going to start off with some very basics, and a reminder to you guys that although I used to be a lot better at speaking Japanese, I studied Japanese, I'm fairly decent at it, I'm really not the best person to educate you guys on this. I just want to educate you guys a little bit in this video, just because I am able to talk with you guys regularly about Plamo related things, Gundam related things. But if you guys are really interested, of course, I would recommend you check out other different channels here on YouTube, other resources for a little bit better explanation and a better education about learning some basics of Japanese. But let's just start with the fact that Japanese actually has 3 writing systems. A lot of you guys probably already know this. There's kanji, katakana, and hiragana. Kanji is far and away the most difficult and one of the most difficult aspects about learning Japanese in general, just because this is the system of writing which is based on Chinese. In order to be generally considered proficient in kanji, you have to know well over 2,000 different characters, and so this is definitely not necessary if you just want to get a beginner's kind of basic knowledge of Japanese. Now, hiragana, on the other hand, is basically a simplified alphabet for Japanese, and this is generally where it's recommended for beginners to start when you want to start being able to read some Japanese words. Now, that said, the third system, as mentioned, is katakana. Katakana is basically an alternate version of hiragana, and it's generally used for foreign or made-up words. So Gundam, for example, is not a real word, it's just a name that's made up. So that's why Gundam is spelled out as Gundam in katakana. And similarly, most Gundam names and a lot of words like related to Gundam are spelled out in katakana because they're just made up words. There are some exceptions, for example, like the Hyakushiki that is in kanji, but those are very few and far between. So although I would really recommend you guys, if you're interested, to learn hiragana, at least for the purposes of enjoying this hobby a little bit more, just learning katakana, I think, is probably good enough to at least help you to be able to read some of the words and be a little bit more familiar with how at least they should be pronounced if you're going by the Japanese pronunciation of the words. In total, katakana only has 47 characters that you have to learn and remember, and then there are a couple of variations on those characters, but that's also very easy to remember. So like I said, in this video, I just wanted to introduce you guys to the basics of katakana and just recommend you guys to take some time to study and learn a little bit more, because not only will it help you with your pronunciation of some of these words if you are interested in pronouncing them in the official Japanese pronunciation. But it will also just, I think, deeply enhance your enjoyment of the hobby because you'll be able to read things when you see like new announcements. Sometimes we don't have the English name of certain products from Bandai as soon as the product's announced. Sometimes it's just there in katakana, and you have to just kind of take what people are kind of saying online, and a lot of times what people are saying, it's not actually the correct pronunciation or the correct spelling necessarily of what that name is. I just find it helpful often, or like for example, when you have your runners and you want to check like, oh, you have a new kit which is a variant and it's using runners from a different kit. The name of the Gundam, which is spelled out on the runners of what that runner is from, is usually in katakana. So you'll be able to look at that and say, and read that and say, oh yeah, this runner is from this kit, and you know that this runner is from that kit because you can read the katakana on the runner for. So there's a lot of different times where it's helpful to know. But just to go back again real quick to take a look at a couple more examples, just to show how the pronunciation necessarily doesn't really matter, because if we were taking a look at just Gunpla, for example, it's pretty commonly known as Gunpla. Everybody calls it Gunpla, and that's a pretty well-established pronunciation here in the English-speaking community for the word Gunpla. That said, if you were to look at the actual pronunciation of that in katakana, it's Gunpla. So if I started saying Gunpla in all my videos, I think you guys may be a little bit confused, or even Gundam itself. Everybody knows here in the English-speaking community, it's Gundam. I think that's a pretty well-established pronunciation for that word, Gundam. But like I said before, if you actually read the katakana pronunciation for it, it's actually Gundam. So I think what can make it difficult sometimes is whether you do want to go by what is the established pronunciation in English, or if you do want to go for the literal Japanese pronunciation for it, because I think here in like English, for example, we would just say Gundam, but another example may be like the Strike Gundam. We don't call it the Strike Gundam, we call it just the Strike Gundam. Just so you can kind of pick and choose which pronunciation you want to go with, and so that's why I mean that there's not really a wrong answer, because whether you're going by the Japanese pronunciation or the English pronunciation, it really kind of doesn't matter so long as everybody knows what we're talking about. So for katakana and also for hiragana, it can be broken down into a chart like this, where it may kind of look like a lot, but I mean, like I said, it's really only 46 characters, and it's broken down by vowels and consonants. So here on the side we have a, I, u, e, o, or a, I, u, e, o, and that's going to be the same for each kind of column here. So we have a, ka, sa, ta, na, ha, ma, ya, ra, wa, and n here is a separate kind of character there. N is never used at the beginning of a word, it's only used after one of these other characters. So for example, if the word is nimo, that would be ni here, and it would never start with this N sound, for example. The really nice thing about this poster is we have example words on each of these, and also stroke order. Stroke order is one of those things that you really don't need to know about as a beginner necessarily, unless you want to also practice writing. You don't need it for reading. And speaking of things that you don't necessarily need to know as a beginner, there is also something called pitch accent, which you may hear about. It's also something that you really don't need to know as a beginner. So if you hear about that, I really wouldn't worry too much about it. But yeah, the example words on here do make it very helpful as well. For na, we have knife. For ni, we have macaroni. For nu, we have noodle. So just like on this side, how we have a, I, u, e, o. For ka, we have ka, ki, ku, ke, ko. Like I was saying before, the vowels are going to be pronounced the exact same no matter which consonants come before. So for I, here is I. With a K, it's ki. With the S, we actually have to add an SH because there's no C. It has to be shi. For example, hyaku shiki or shinanju, shi is always going to be the same. For ta, we actually can't say T. We have to say chi because there's no T sound in Japanese. So this is what I mean where Japanese language translated or at least spelled out in Romaji in English doesn't always work. But to continue with the N, it's ni. With the H, it's he. With the M, it's mi. There is no yi. There is ri and there is no we. But there are going to be words where the pronunciation does call for a we sound. So in order to do that, basically what you're going to do is combine the u sound, which is u, and then you would attach a smaller miniaturized version of e right next to it to make ui, to make we, instead of having we because there's no we character. Then just coming back to n here again, just because it is very interesting. N is the only ending consonant sound that you can have. That's why for a word like Gundam, it's not Gundam and it's Gundam with the U at the end, because there is no final sound M, there is only a final sound n. So if you want to end the word with an M sound, it's usually just in this category here. For example, Gundam ends with Gundamu, or Dragon Ball ends with Dragon Ball Ru. So Ru, U sound is usually used at the end of a word when it needs to end on a consonant, but Japanese just can't end on a consonant unless it's n. The only unfortunate thing about this poster is that it doesn't teach the variations, which I mentioned briefly before. So for example, here for ha, if you add the two little marks next to it, it becomes ba. So if you want B sounds, you'll notice there's no B's on here. So how we make a B sound is by adding those two little marks to the ha column. So instead of ha, it would be ba. Instead of hi, it would be B. Instead of fu, bu, be, bo. And similarly for making P sounds, you'll notice there's no P's. So for example, party in Japanese is pati. We add, rather than the two lines, we add a small circle here on the side. Instead of ha, it's pa, pi, pu, pe, po. Oh, I take that back. I guess the variations are over here listed on the side. I wish that they were kind of like here with the letters, but that's okay. They're over here. So ga, za, da, ba, and pa, for example, over here. But that is something you will also have to know. So that does kind of add to, while it may look like 46, these 46 are the basis. There are variations to these and combinations of these that you will have to familiarize yourself with, but at the very least, just memorizing these 46 will give you the basis for starting your journey into just learning these. In total, with the variations, I mean, I don't know what it is. It's maybe probably around 70 to 80 characters in total if you count the variations as separate. Like if you were making flashcards for yourself, if you would get like a pack of 100 flashcards, that's going to be more than enough to include all the variations and combinations that you can do with these as well. Gundam or Gunpla are both examples of words that use multiple variations. Ga in Gundam is a variation of ka, and da in the middle of Gundam is a variation of na. And in Gunpla, the pu in the middle is our variation of fu. So like I said, I think a great way to memorize this is using flashcards. There are a lot of applications for doing virtual flashcards. Anki is probably the most commonly and well-known used one for learning Japanese. If you want to do it on your phone or on your computer. Other applications which I've used on my phone and do like, which are great, are Duolingo or Memrise are a couple of good ones. If you really want to get into a little bit more advanced learning, I think these are not enough necessarily because they don't really teach you, some of the finer points and context and things like that. But if you just want to use it on your phone as a way to just do some flashcards and memorizing just hiragana, katakana, easy, simple stuff like this, those are great tools to have. They're completely free. You can do it on your phone. You don't have to actually have or make any physical flashcards. Or you can make some. Some people really do like having the physical flashcards there in front of them, but those applications are great. Like I said, there's also plenty of other different YouTube videos and channels you can find online, especially for Japanese. There's loads and loads of videos online about the language. Anyway, guys, that's going to be it for this video. I hope that you guys found it helpful or informative in some way. Like I said, I recommend learning a little bit of Japanese just to help you greater appreciate the hobby and enjoy the hobby a little bit more. And it's never a bad thing to be a little bit more educated in something, so take some time and maybe you'll learn something new. But if you guys liked the video, leave a like, subscribe if you're not subscribed yet. I really appreciate all the support from you guys. If you would like to see more videos related to like Japanese pronunciation and things like that, maybe for some different mobile suits, if you would like to see videos like that or anything kind of similar, if you have other ideas, let me know in the comment section. I'm happy to entertain your guys' ideas and doing something more like this in the future. But thank you guys so much for all of your support, and I'll see you next time. Bye guys.